Hello, good morning. It's pretty early in the morning, India time. It's nearly 4 o'clock. We are live here on Sports Today. I'm Rajashri Gupta. I have some special guests with me this after a thriller of a final at the Euro 2020, where Italy defeated England on penalties. And that after England had taken a lead as early as the second minute, courtesy of Mr. Luke Shaw, but that wasn't to be the winner, decisive winner with Bonucci coming leveling scores in the 67th minute. The game went to extra time. Well, again, uh, gridlock at 1-1 and in the penalties. And we discussed that on Sports Today earlier. With the penalty shootout, we told you why the Italians had that edge with their experience. And of course, they had also defeated Spain via a penalty shootout in that semi-final. England, of course, getting the better of Denmark. But two of the best teams, arguably, competing in that final of the Euro 2020 at Wembley, and it was decisively heartbreaking for England fans, for the Three Lions, and of course, I have with me Andy Cooper, who's joining us on Sports Today. I'm sure he will have a few things to say. I have with me, of course, Shuman Chakraborty and Chinmoy Roy as well to dig out really what happened there. But I must introduce Andy Cooper. He is one of the best known football pundits in Europe, former youth development head of Leeds United. He has a very, very good grip and hold over English football. And he take us through those 90 minutes and then those 30 extra minutes. What really happened? Luke Shaw opened it up in the second minute. We were discussing before you came on board. We thought England were a little too defensive after that. They fell back to try and protect that lead. Did Gareth Southgate make that mistake? Again, Saka not starting for the Three Lions. And also their eventually their choice of players in that penalty shootout. It just completely dismantled for England, or what should have been one of their most iconic football nights.
Yeah, absolutely. A really difficult, even an absolute roller coaster of emotions. First of all, thanks for having me on the show. When you take the lead as early as the second minute, especially with the type of football and the style that I thought England would set out with playing them wing backs and maybe playing a few more longer balls to start up to open up the defensive line of Italy and try and move them aging heroic centre backs that they've got around. It came up trumps, and obviously they were able to force their way in at the back post, wing back to wing back. A great move with Harry Kane dropping in deep and coming off the line, which we thought he might do, and then linking up play with the midfield and then again getting the ball out wide. But I thought England probably had the better of the first half, although there was a few shaky spells, but it's always going to happen when you play the likes of a world-class opposition. Second half, completely changed around, much more defensive, much more sitting off, kind of lost a lot of energy. Credit to Italy for that, the way they kind of changed in terms of the tempo that they were playing, much more dominant in possession in and around the box and be able to link up with Verratti becoming really more dominant on the ball, Jorginho as well. And a real attacking threat for me was that Chiesa all the way through. Obviously, he's grown right towards the tournament. When he went off and he was injured, you kind of thought maybe there might have been a shift in momentum. They played a few trump cards with the substitutes. England held on. And like you say, as it went into extra time, they made them tactical changes just for penalty takers, really. And in the end, it's cost them dear. But overall, look, it's a heartbreaking way to go. You can never score too early in a game. People might say it was maybe too early to sit on a lead, but I do think you've still got to be on the front foot and be aggressive. And ultimately, the class of Italy shone through in the end, and all credit to them.
Absolutely. The class of Italy shone through that in the home of England, and that was what mattered at the end. They held their nerves. In fact, in the first half, Italy they were definitely looking the second best team out on the park, and England had opened up that lead early on. Shuman, we have discussed that about England. They have been one of the two best teams heading into this final alongside Italy. They were so good. Jordan Pickford, you feel for him. He was brilliant throughout the tournament. Again, even in this penalty shootout, made a couple of saves. He was brave. You feel for him. Raheem Sterling, again, wasn't his night there either. Decidedly, there were so many setbacks for England. Some of the stars, some of the younger players who've done so well on the final night, just something or the other, just really crumbled through. But more so, I want you to take us through that trip, that journey for Jordan Pickford. What a journey it has been for him up until the final, and then again it dismantled completely.
Of course, and more importantly, just want to start with, I just want to say, England football has never been so close to home, actually. And
Yeah.
I mean, what a team. what a performance, character, camaraderie. The best team in the competition has won the title without any doubt. Italy was brilliant, but I mean, of course, Gareth Southgate had his own convictions, played with a defensive mindset, and he came up with flying colours till the final and almost pulled it off. Jordan Pickford, as I mentioned in our evening show as well, I didn't want this game to go to the tiebreaker and or the penalties because, of course, the pressure of Wembley, young shoulders. I had a doubt how much pressure they can take on their shoulders, but Jordan Pickford, outstanding, two magnificent saves, not just two magnificent saves. I mean, throughout the competition, five clean sheets on a trot, then a set piece goal which he conceded. Even the goal which he conceded in the 67th minute, before he conceded the goal which he saved, actually, just before that, it was a magnificent save from a very close range. Very, very, very heartbreaking. Uh, I'm sure like this would be a massive, massive boost for both the countries in terms of their footballing traditions. They'd be getting a lot of confidence. England finished semi-finalists in the 2018, 2020 Euros. They have finished runners-up in the Euro. And a World Cup semi-finalist and runner-up in the Euro. You never know. Next time in Qatar can be a different story altogether.
And absolutely, it could be a different story altogether. Chinwai, if we're talking about the Italians and the Brazilians could not qualify for the finals of the 2018 World Cup, look at what they did here. Fantastic throughout the tournament. Semi-final, they did look a little scratchy against Spain. Bounced back beautifully, held their nerves for the penalty shootout. Again, for the first half, maybe the first 35, 40 minutes, England was a far better team. Yes, for some reason they decided to change the tactic. They were a little more defensive after opening it up in the second minute. But such delightful moments for the Italians. Insignia, we were talking about him before the show. He looked a little off color. Maybe England marked him off really well, put him under pressure. But absolute word of praise and just, you don't want to heap words of praise on Roberto Mancini. He was emotional at the end there. That's a testimony to his leadership style as well for the Italians.
Yes, first, Andy, very welcome to the show. Thank you for being with us. You're an absolutely erudite person on football. Now, to start with, I think I'll share opinion with you. It became more of a tactical game. Now, once you score one, I mean, you score at the second minute, why hold yourself back, right? Because 2 minutes is too early. It would have been better that England could have forged forward and make it 2-0. Now, we have seen Italy formation-wise. I mean, whenever they're down, I mean, goals down, they've started 4-3-3, but you can see it became 3-2-5. It became 3-2-5 in second half. Emerson on the left, and you can see from the right, Lorenzo at times the keeping Jorginho behind. The two Verratti, they were playing up front. And you see Bonucci scored. I have seen many times, I was counting, that Kileni was in their box, right? So Kileni in their box. So you can see the two stoppers, Bonucci scored. Now, my first query is first half, only second minute you score a goal. Why you sit back? That's a very defensive tactics. I think Southgate has to answer that. That's number one. Number two is, I don't know, Suman was saying these are very experienced guy in taking penalties, but coming at the last, 1 minute, I mean, you don't have the feel of the whole situation. Rashford and Jadon Sancho, right? They may be good penalty takers, but I feel that a little bit of football I've played, once you're off the park, suddenly coming in, it takes a bit to get used to it. Of course, Bukayo Saka is a tremendous player, but again, you're throwing an inexperienced guy for the penalty, right? So I think Gareth Southgate, having done so much for England, I think some questions for him to answer. So before I say much, because I'm really, really elated about Italy, because I find that Mancini, I was saying that the 35 match that Brazil and Spain has got a streak of being unbeaten, that will count, because the team is very high on confidence. And of course, they have the experience of pulling it through in the final 4 World Cups, and this is their second Euro. Whereas England doesn't have the same experience. Okay, this was I was saying. Now, Andy, you'll be better off to answer. What about the tactical battle between the two? Why England sat back? And then The last one is why the penalty they brought in all these inexperienced guys.
Yeah. Just to also
Yeah.
add to that is the perspective, is that now going to be a parallel between what Mancini did and Southgate's style of leadership and management? I think that's the point Chinmay is trying to put through, Andy.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you know what, I feel ultimately at the start of the game, England's plan, and it was a risk to go with that 3-4-3 formation because they could have got overloaded in that midfield with the excellence that they have with Jorginho, with Verratti, with Barella. But what they decided to do by playing them wing backs, they actually, and it happened quite a lot in the first half, they were able to push Insigne on one side and Chiesa really far back. They weren't allowing them to get forward. It was a really good tactic to do, but as exactly you're alluding to, we weren't able to do it consistently. And the tactics, and then when these players start to pull strings in the midfield and get into wider areas, then you saw the likes of their fullbacks being able to get forward and created England a lot of problems. And then, second half, they did switch to that 4-3-3, that 4-2-3-1, that Southgate has used leading into games, and he only fell back on the back three, obviously, once previously in that Germany game. But we weren't able to have that impetus on the game and drive forward, although there was moments coming towards the end of the game. But ultimately, they're a great team, and we have to give credit to Italy for being able to dominate the ball for long periods and being able to step in with possession and really create them chances. Although, I do think we defended well and resolute with the time, but I hope, you did expect that it was only a matter of time potentially where we might have got picked off. What I would have liked to have seen and was hoping for that if we don't have the ball for long periods, when we didn't win the ball back, we were able to use the pace and stretch Italy with the centre-backs they had and be able to exploit them a little bit more. And I don't feel that's really where we got the balance right. With regards to the penalties, it's not something, it's a tactic that's kind of creeping into the game a bit more. You've seen goalkeepers being changed late into extra time for specialist goalkeepers coming on for penalties. But I have the same feeling as you in the sense that if I was in that position, you'd want to have had a feel of the ball and a touch of the game and be involved in the game before you lead into taking a huge moment. But obviously, it was something that I don't feel was probably thrown on the players. I'm sure it was discussed. I'm sure they were aware of it. And obviously, Gareth Southgate's in a position that he's been in that circumstance many years ago, 25 years ago now. And if there's any man who's English who could be in that position to tell them young boys that this isn't a moment to define them, that there is resilience, that they've got long careers ahead, they've got big moves, a lot of, Sancho just got his big move and they've got great football ahead. And I hope in the British media and people will support them onwards as well because they are fantastic young players.
No, I was also about to ask you what you could, how you foresee the reactions from the British media, because we've seen in the past, the media there would tend to get a little aggressive with, whether it's a cricket team there, whether it's a football team, of course, they won the World Cup in 2019 with the England cricket team. But now, how is this going to be looked at? Because they've clearly covered a lot of ground, especially in this Euro. Does this final defeat, does it mean that it's going to go back? Is the media going to be hounding Gareth Southgate? Is there going to be a lot of questions asked? Obviously, over strategies in the final, but does that douse a lot of water to everything that he has achieved so far in the last 1 month? Gareth Southgate with this team.
Yeah, I think the key word for me, and maybe this media won't have it, is perspective and putting it into really what has happened in the journey that this national team has been through. If you look at 2015-16 and the period of Gareth Southgate, at one point they were, it's widely kind of known, people were making paper aeroplanes out of the free cardboard they put on your seats at Wembley and making, throwing them onto the pitch and keeping them entertained with Mexican waves. It wasn't the exciting, gripping, energy kind of football that we wanted to see, and we were creating a culture and a DNA of in England of this. So hopefully we can see the progress made, as someone said, with getting to a World Cup semi-final and now going to a final and taking Italy all the way. So I do hope there's a bit more humility, a bit more honesty. Southgate's taken, his own club management has always been called into question, but he's been a perfect fit for developing young players in our national team system in a framework that we've built over a long time. And credit should be to him and his backroom staff of all they've achieved. And he'll know criticism will come his way, especially probably for the penalties, maybe for not how they're set up, because they are playing the strongest team in the competition, potentially around the substitutes and the change of tactics. But really, when you look back at the journey being on, that it's not the end for England here. It's actually the continuation of a really good period. And people like myself are excited for that next chapter.
Absolutely. No, and Shimon, we talk about the England talent house as well. And of course, we've talked about the Italians, the fact that so many of these legends there in that team, they have come through. And the fact is that, we've spoken about England's young powerhouse, but the thing is with Italy, their senior pros have really taken on the cudgel to make sure that they've left behind the heartbreak. But is and how does the shape of world football? You've seen England, we've seen Italy, we've seen Denmark, we've seen Spain. Of course, the world champions, the defending champions were knocked out. At the other hand, we saw Copa America and how the South American football is shaped up. Now, at the end of the Euro and at the end of the Copa America, how is this looking for world football? How are these teams looking stacked up going into the World Cup next year?
Well, when I was a kid, back in 2002, 1998, I used to listen to my dad, my uncle, like the South American superpowers like Brazil and Argentina used to rule world football. Honestly, since 2006, it has been all Europe. And European football has gone miles ahead compared to the other continental football in terms of pedigree. And honestly, we have seen the Copa America this time around as well. And of course, the biggest of the critics won't be, confessing this truth that uh, I mean, European football has gone miles ahead. Even teams like Hungary and Denmark can give trouble to South American teams with the prowess they have these days. Football has evolved a lot. This time, football, especially the last 10 years precisely, football has been more compact, more technical. It's all about before the game, which is after the game. So a lot of technical aspects have come into play, and more importantly these days, the European superpowers. Especially if you talk about superpowers, there is no superpower in European football at the moment. There are very, very fine margins. Among all the teams, in fact. Otherwise, teams like Denmark or Hungary couldn't give this much of a fight. Or Macedonia, they
Yeah.
defeated Germany in the qualifying stage as well. So, of course, all these things are coming into play. Precisely, I would like to say a few things about today's game as well. People will be talking about a lot of players who participated in this big final. I'd be talking about three players today. First, Harry Maguire. I'm sure like Andy Cooper would be agreeing with me with the performance he has produced over here on the heart of the defense. Absolutely meticulous. He instigated in almost 100% situations when then the danger was there. First, brilliant piece of defending, best defender to me according in terms of the performances in this particular Euro Cup. Second, Marco Verratti. Both of them, Harry Maguire and Marco Verratti, they were not fit before the start of the tournament. Verratti today, he was absolutely exceptional. 88 correct passes in 90 minutes. Could you believe it? 16 successful tackles out of 17. That set the tone of the game for Italy. That helped them to get control of it. And of course, I would like to talk about one player. He's Calvin Phillips. Andy groomed him, developed him in his time as well. What a find for England, Andy. Check about.
And
Yeah,
also, meanwhile, sorry, go on, Andy.
no, I was going to say these tournaments always a great opportunity to discover players, players either there who are put on a pedestal to prove their potential, and other ones that come through. And it might not be Mancini's first thought at the start of the tournament that this would be his 11 for his best 11 if they're all fully fit. Obviously, I know they had injuries with the Spinazzola, but England were the same. You've got Henderson coming back from an injury, so Declan Rice and Calvin Phillips team up. I thought they were absolutely superb in what they did, breaking play up, doing the real dirty work off the ball, and then leading the line, harrying away, like you said, obviously developing and maturing all the time. So these are what these big tournaments do. They give opportunities for world-class players to show who they are and prove it on the biggest stage, but also for players to come through and really get themselves noticed, and maybe people who don't watch them week in, week out.
Right. Now, before we close, we'll just quickly go through all three of you and ask you what the high points do you think of the European Championship? Well, which were the teams that did not reach reach the last four, but which were the players that really impressed most? Are we getting comments on our channel there from Arpan saying Leicester Square has turned into a mess, bottles being thrown already? I'm just reading up some updates from the Metropolitan Police events. They're saying we have made 45 arrests while policing today's Euro 2020 final. A number of officers remain on duty, helping fans leave them. So We saw scenes of absolute elation and ecstasy when they were trying to enter Wembley, enter the stadium. Obviously, that was through before the passage of play started, and now maybe there are some scenes that are unfolding, but we can't confirm them yet. We don't know what's exactly happened, so we'll come back to that. Chinmoy, before I go to Andy, couple of players who didn't reach the semifinals, but they were still really impressive. There are teams across tournaments that could really impress even without pressing it for the title charge. Who were those two teams that clearly stood out for you?
I'm coming to the players, but just one point back about the development. You said beautiful question that was from Copa and Euro, where the Qatar, I mean, in terms of Qatar, where which team stands for. For me, really, you can see Italy having that blend of senior players, experienced players, and the juniors look very, I mean, well off. Now, Argentina has showed today they're in the right path. You can see a lot of youngsters under Scaloni, so they're well off. Now look at France, though they went away, I don't think they're as bad. So because they have got the experienced top players, maybe Deschamps was fiddling with a lot of these formations. So that's one point. England is well off their youth development, where Andy is part of it, under 17 World Cup champion, under 20 champion. So they will be pushing the other teams, right? Now Denmark, they have done very well. I think Czech Republic is also a good team, right? So this is the health of world football evolving in the coming days. Belgium, for example, a lot of the stars are aging. So I don't think, despite being the world FIFA number one, Belgium will be in the downswing in the coming days, right? So this is the takeaway from this Euro, right? Even Croatia, for example, last year's World Cup finalists, I don't think they will be that much of a threat. Now, so far as the good, I mean, the promising players, the players who caught the attention, imagination of us, and of course the big clubs, the transfer markets. I think Patrick Schick is one. Okay, then Memphis Depay, I really liked him. Of course, Pedri. Okay, everyone said about it. So some of these Schick, really very impressive, as I said. Memphis Depay, again I'm repeating, and then this guy, right, Pedri. So this, I think, just caught the imagination.
Absolutely,
And Andy
Andy.
might add someone else. And
Yes,
one
the
more thing,
fact
I
that
just wanted to just ask Andy really why Andy Grealish was Grealish rather, sorry, why Jack Grealish was brought in so late. That this is one more point. Is it a reflection of too much of defensive style of Southgate? This is one point I wanted to ask you.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like when he was taken off after coming on as a substitute in the last game, that really dealt the hand. And obviously, post-match, Gareth Southgate had said that he wasn't as defensive-minded as other players, obviously. But you also have to think that one way that he could actually potentially be defensive is not just with his position and his movements, but he buys a lot of fouls, he holds the ball up. So depending what type of game you want and the situation when it's stretched, you had both the centre-backs were on yellow cards as well at that moment. So he thought maybe there might be an opportunity there for him to run at, to get the ball, to drive the ball. You know how quick he is in and around when the ball's at his feet. So he'd have an opportunity to draw fouls. So that also can be attacked as well if they want to slow the game down and potentially reduce the opposition down to 10 men. So it was a tough balance, but I did feel like whether it was going to be at 1-0 up, they weren't going to swap Mount for Grealish. Grealish was going to come on for Mount. But then when it went level, you thought, I think he's potentially going to make this change. But as you kind of alluded to, maybe it was slightly too late in that aspect to have a real impact. But I think you saw what he could do with the 15 minutes before the end of the game, what the impact they can have.
Right. Also, before we get to the close, Andy, there were some questions. I know it's a little sensitive, but it's about the English crowd behavior. You saw laser points at Kasper Schmeichel. Of course, there was a fine of around 30,000 euros. They were booing the Italian national anthem. Having worked with underage football teams, having worked around younger players, do you also feel sometimes that England, where football, where people are so passionate about football, the aura of the team, the reputation of the team is so connected with the crowd, with the fans, that there should be probably a drive when you expect crowds to behave a little better and with a little more maturity, or when they're supporting such a fine team. And sometimes what happens is such behavior, it sort of waters down the fine performances of the three lions on the field. You see that impacting in the longer run.
Yeah, and I don't think it's particularly helps. I don't think it does anything other than motivate the opposition when you boo such an iconic anthem like many of the national teams have had that England have played against. You know, I've coached against England youth teams as well when I was working in Qatar. I think the pennant's just over my shoulder here when we played against them, and both teams, you know, belted out their national anthem with pride, and both teams respected each other's, and that's in youth football, and I know that's, you know, brought into the England players as they go through on the journey, but with the supporters and the spectators that have in, you know, a mindless few can really produce a, you know, a kind of it puts us off topic of talking about the performance on the on-pitch matters. It's a shame it happens. I don't think it benefits anyone. I think if anything, it motivates the opposition and steps them forward. I know it probably does for England when they're away and they've had some recent troubles in parts of Europe in the qualifications. When they receive some abuse, so it's not a good side of the game that we would like. We'd like the game to be remembered and this tournament to be remembered for the amazing things that have gone on, having quite a unique Euro experience, really, and not the behaviour that probably might have marred part of this evening.
Right, absolutely, and hopefully that changes in the times to come, because England are shaping up to be such a fine team around such young players and a fantastic manager in Gareth Southgate. He made some mistakes in Wembley on Sunday, but that he will overcome that. But before we go, Shuman, what are the most important takeaways? What are the happiest takeaways for you? I know you're an England supporter. You were rooting for England to win this one. Didn't come home. Torn from Bonucci, by the way. That's exactly what Andy said. You know, it makes the opposition more determined. Didn't come home for England. But what are the best takeaways for you from this European Championship?
Well, honestly, I want to say something. It's like England fans have always hoped, but they haven't always believed. This team made England believe. That's the biggest takeaway from this Euro. I'm sure, like, Andy will be going with me as well. I mean, abundance of talents, so many superb youngsters, but this team showed what can be done if you play as a unit. What can be done if you play with the mantra like this team is a star. There's no individual in this, and that is the reason why this Euro will be remembered for ages. And I'm sure this is just the start of a new era in European football. This Euro has been the finest, which I have noticed. Amazing throughout. Chinmoy was talking about Patrick Schick, talking about Pedri, talking about youngsters. Forsberg impressed me a lot. Mail, impressed me a lot. I mean, Højbjerg impressed me a lot. Højbjerg plays really well. Hardly gets any opportunity over there in Tottenham Hotspur. But with the way they express themselves, Bukayo Saka, it could be a path-changing tournament for him as well. I mean, the youngest player of the squad, the way he played in this competition, it will give him a lot of confidence in future. And I'm sure, as I just mentioned, Qatar would be, of course, a step ahead. And of course, I mean, this experience, this exposure of all these youngsters, I mean, they'll be having one special experience while going forward in the next World Cup, which no other English team had in the last decades, actually, ever since the 1966 World Cup. That this England team will be playing in a World Cup with the experience of playing a major final.
Yeah. I'll give the final word to Andy, but before I go there, Chinmoy, quickly, what are you sending us? You said you'd send us some sweets if your favorite two teams won the big finals on Sunday. So he's promised us some goodies and some sweets and delicacies from Calcutta.
Yeah, he was talking about an English breakfast. He invited me for some British English breakfast. I said that come to the Pizza Hut, have some Italian pizza. And it eventually happened. I was disappointed that Spain was not there. Okay. And one more thing, I missed out that two of the players, English players I love, I've watched in the Under-17 World Cup in Salt Lake, Jadon Sancho and Philip Foden. Outstanding talent. I missed out, really. They'll be future of England, two outstanding players. Somehow they couldn't figure because England has got abundance of talent. Yeah. So they missed out. And as you say, take away from this Euro, I would say two things. Two things. One is that the world emerged out of that fear, the terror the COVID had cast, right? So the first time that we are coming away from that, it was right positivity. There were some comments in the media that this might become a super spreader, but then for me, we love sport. So Euro and Wimbledon both has given us a light that we are coming out of that, the positivity. That was first thing that struck my mind. And the second most important thing is looking at Qatar, so many teams, I mean, the teams I spoke about has brought about so many young talents. Okay, it's not only Cristiano Ronaldo and Messi we'll be talking about. I think we'll be hearing more names, and also Kylian Mbappe, like Griezmann and all these things. Okay, so that's a positive thing. I hope that I really loved it, because in the morning, my God, Messi won. I was very happy, and they defeated the might of Brazil. And here I felt that a very resurgent, transformed Italy, they are the deserved winner. So no matter what my friend Suman feels, I think today is the night where in Rome, I said about the Colosseum. The Colosseum was Wembley. Now there are two gladiators fighting. One was England and one was Italy. But who have got the feel of fighting in the Colosseum? It's in Rome. So the Romans won, and I'm very happy for them. That's the takeaway.
Four powerhouses of world football: Argentina and Brazil. Argentina winning at the home of Brazil, and Italy overcoming England in the mecca of English football. And it's been enthralling football. But before we go, Andy Cooper, Gary Southgate. We're talking about how it could be a moment of reckoning for him, especially after 1996. Wasn't to be. What is your view on Gary Southgate in the kind of man that he is, in how he can bounce back and how he can take England football forward from here? What do you think would be going on in his mind right now? Would that have played on in his mind, that he wanted to win it for England so badly, especially after what happened in 1996 with the penalty kick?
Yeah, I think he's proven himself to be able to compete at the international level over a number of years now. To blood youngsters, to be tactically, to be astute. We have previously turned to different types of managers, from club kind of specialists and other international managers. He obviously was given the role after working well with the under-21s and kind of slightly by default with what happened with Sam Allardyce, but he's really grasped it. He stands for a lot of things that a lot of people in England believe in his values and his humility and his hard work and his honesty, his integrity to what he's done. He's assembled a really strong backroom team around him, great coaching staff with Steve Holland and Chris Powell and people previously who worked with him on a rota basis with Paul Nevin as well. So yeah, I think it's just the start and the continuation of a really strong program for England. I do feel that there's more to come. But I think with today, fortunately, the game has gone against us, and obviously all credit does go to Italy for a superb tournament. But it's hopefully a breakthrough moment. We broke it in 2018 with penalties kind of hoodoo and been able to shake off some big teams. And now we've gone again one step further and been able to take a team as good as Italy really deep into extra time and obviously penalties. When it goes into penalties and you look at the keeper that they've got and some of the penalty takers having previously been through against Spain, I think we all knew it would be difficult, but it's been a superb tournament for England. It hurts now, it'll hurt tomorrow, but we need to dust themselves down and get back and get focusing, getting ready for qualification games and obviously a future that looks bright in Qatar, we hope, and beyond.
Absolutely, the future does look bright for England. Not just that, with Italy, and in fact also kudos to what Denmark did, especially without a lot of star power after Christian Eriksen collapsed on the pitch. It's been a memorable European Championship. It's been a great tournament to cover. And thank you for watching us do that on Sports Today and bring out some exciting coverage around the tournament. Thank you, Andy, once again for joining us on this broadcast. It's been a pleasure to have you over. Hopefully, we'll get to talk to you once again and a lot.
Thank you.
Times on football on Sports Today. Shivanchak, Chinmoy Roy, as usual, lovely to have you. This is part of the team and being such a pleasure covering the European Championship 2020. Italy are the winners. England, heartbreak for them at home. And of course, Argentina winning the Copa America for the 15th time. And Lionel Messi emotional scenes there. Of course, also for Neymar and Brazil. So spectacular throughout that tournament in South America. But that's that for this final on Sports Today. We'll be back with a lot more on Wimbledon, Djokovic's triumph, England's triumph, and of course Argentina's celebrations through the course on Monday. Thank you so much for joining us this early in the morning. Thank you for your comments and your questions, and do subscribe to Sports Today. Stay healthy, stay safe, and keep supporting this platform. Thank you.